Given what you've heard me say, the model is suggesting that you just have to learn to live with one another's damage.
I'm John Carlson, and this is Dr. Joyce Buckner. Joyce, what is imago? What is imago therapy?
It's a process by which a therapist creates enough safety in the session so that partners can truly learn how to meet one another's needs and grow up and be real adults. Real adults.
What does the imago, the term, stand for in that, creating that situation?
Well, it's a Latin word meaning inner picture or inner image. And in this work, it represents the collage of all of those recordings of our major caregivers, all of those experiences that we had with them when we were young, their traits and characteristics, becomes really a prototype for the kind of person that we experience as someone who can meet our needs.
How did you get to be an imago therapist? Where did your journey come from?
Where did my journey come from? Well, I met Harville Hendricks, Dr. Hendricks, in 1983 in Dallas, liked what he was saying in those days, and started hanging out with him. There were 3 or 4 of us who became very interested in a theory that he was beginning to develop.
So you're right in from on the ground floor.
The ground floor, an old-timer, some people call me. Yeah.
And so you started there, and are you like what they call a classical imago therapist, or do you have a different twist to imago therapy?
You know, John, I don't know that we have a classic imago therapist. The model is so new and continues to develop, which is wonderful, by the way. I do have some twists that are a bit different from the way the imago model is generally taught.
Can you talk about what that might be?
Yeah. Well, intentional dialogue is kind of the center point of the model presently.
Okay.
And I've moved with that piece a bit and actually call my process creative colloquy. It's somewhat different from intentional dialogue.
In what way?
In that, in creative colloquy, both the sender, the person who's talking, and the receiver, the one who's listening, have a very specific role, a responsibility in helping the communication happen. In intentional dialogue, the responsibility is given to the listener. Also, I emphasize in creative colloquy this, what I call the spirit of the send, the degree of empathy, warmth, genuineness that's involved in the sending and in the receiving, so that it's more than mechanics.
So the focus is on both the sender and the receiver.
Yes.
And it seems like with what I call traditional imago therapy, classical, if you will, the focus is more on receiving?
Yes.
I see.
More on the role that the receiver plays, in that the receiver is the one responsible, for instance, for not becoming reactive, and so on.
Now, does this get into the fact that we all have these images? The sender has an image and the receiver has an image. Is the sender trying to change the way that they send messages? Or is just being more sensitive to...
The sender, is the sender trying to change the way they send?
Right.
The sender is has the responsibility of sending or saying, communicating in a way that really assists the listener in being able to stay open and non-defended in hearing the message, in saying it clearly, in really doing all that the sender can do to help the listener get it.
And I think John Gottman in his work talks about how you have to have soft sending. You know, it's a softer aspect when you start to say things. And it seems like so much when I look at the Imago therapy work, it seems to be focusing more on what the receiver does.
Yes.
Can the receiver mirror back things accurately?
Yes.
And so you really work at both ends, the sender and the receiver, when you do it.
Yeah.
But is doing the process pretty much the same?
Mechanically?
Yeah.
Pretty much the same, yet with these differences. It's, in fact, quite different. A major thesis in the model is that we are relational in our essence, that we influence and are influenced. And so in the sending and the receiving, it's like if the sender is being critical or demeaning or something like that, then it literally becomes impossible for the receiver to be receptive and open. So it is an interactive thing.
Is there steps that you follow in your work?
Steps in the form of
the therapy. And is there like a step 1, step 2, step 3? We always like to have these manualized
I think you
approaches.
can. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how to answer that, John. To me, the steps are simply paying attention to what's happening with the couple or the individual, if you're working with an individual, and honoring that behavior and noticing or helping each person notice what's going on with the other.
So there'd be an awareness component would be maybe one of the first things or one of the main things that you do?
Safety making maybe would be a way to say.
Create safety.
Yeah. So there's nobody's the bad guy in this work. Nobody's wrong. You know.
And then you get
sick.
people to talk with one another, though, not with you.
Yes. Yes.
And then you're kind of a coach?
Coach, I think, is a very good term. And this is a way that Imago is quite different from many forms of therapy. That the therapist is not the center of the focus, but the therapist is really on the sidelines, literally, like a coach, helping the partners to communicate with one another. And it's the partners who are the focus of what's going on.
And it sounds like the coach in this sense is a low-keyed coach in order to keep this safe environment.
Well, it's a wonderful mix, John. Initially, you mentioned steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so safety first. But it's like once safety is created, once a level of trust is established, empathy is established, rapport, we call it in the therapeutic community, then I give myself and I teach the people whom I'm trying to give themselves permission, in fact, to be quite assertive at times and confrontive to strengths. So it's a very interesting move back and forth into acceptance and stretch.
Confrontive to strengths, you said.
Yeah. It's like serving as a mirror that's willing to show the off places, the places that don't come together, that don't match, as well as the places that are wonderfully synchronistic. Both of those.
Being a guy, I think of the different kinds of coaches there are. Some of them throw chairs, and some of them grab people and shake them. And
do coaches do that?
Well, and some then they move to Texas after they lose their jobs in the Midwest.
Yes, they do that. Yes.
Actually, and it sounds like this coach that you are, for a while, it's very safe and very low-keyed, and then you turn around, and at times, then you can be more direct.
Absolutely.
And is that a teaching, or is that a feedback mechanism that you use at that time?
Yes.
Yeah, it's both. Huh?
Yes.
Is teaching a big part of your work?
Absolutely.
Do you have the couples that you see? Do you work with individuals or just couples? I should ask that
Both,
question.
actually. This work can be done in both ways. It's easier for people to grow when they're in a committed relationship, and it's possible to do a great deal of growing when you're not in a committed, intimate relationship.
Mm-hmm. Now, it was my understanding that with one of the Imago tenets is that you find a partner, that somebody who can hurt you in the way that you were hurt as a child.
Yes.
How do you get that out in an individual session using this approach? How do you get in touch with that ability to hurt and your clients to feel hurt in that way?
You don't.
Oh.
The degree of the work that you can do with an individual is different. It's less deep, if we want to talk about it in those terms. In other words, an individual can learn they can learn some of the ways that they've adapted. We call it their adaptive behavior. Some of the ways that they've learned to behave that will tend to create responses from other people that are other than what they want. So those can be pointed out, and an individual can learn to begin to recraft some of their behavior, and therefore they're literally growing some, but they will not touch those deep wounded places and have those healed other than in an intimate, committed relationship.
So they really will need to bring a partner in at some point in time if they're going to get to those issues. Or find a partner, have a partner.
Yes. And very often, I'll say to someone, they've come in and said, "Hey, Joyce, I want to be fixed. I want to grow up. So in my next relationship, I won't mess up." And basically what I say is, "Gee, we can do some work to help you grow a little bit. But we can't fix you in the sense that the same kinds of issues will not be recreated in an intimate relationship. And we won't get to those here because you won't, you won't
so
go to these places."
You're guaranteed to mess up in that next relationship.
Absolutely.
But you'll have a model, or you'll know that it's coming, and you can do something different about it, perhaps?
Yes. So you can do so much with the awareness component, John. It's like you can help someone to learn how to reframe their experience and understand it differently so that they can be in an attitude of working with their partner to create a very different kind of outcome.
And when you work with a couple, are you hoping that when they leave, they would make a commitment to doing something different? Is there kind of a behavioral request or assignment that you want them to accomplish in between therapy sessions?
I'm going to play a little bit with the way you ask that, John. Is that okay?
Go for it.
It isn't so much that I want them to do something, but this is a very structured kind of work, so that what comes out of the session will be awarenesses on each person's part of what they need from their partner to feel more safe, or maybe more passionate, more alive, both of those components. And so I essentially offer the opportunity for them to make requests of one another. We call them behavior change requests. And then support them in making a commitment that what they grant in the form of a behavior change request absolutely must be honored. But it doesn't come from me. It isn't something I want them to do.
But you'd structure that and want them to do something.
Yes.
Okay.
And even again, almost not want them to, but say, look, if you want to get what you say you want, this is what you're telling one another is essential as a next step to get that.
So if you were doing your job, though, you'd want them to head in that direction.
Boy, we're still really playing on that want to, because I truly don't have an agenda for the couple other than helping them get what they want. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be willing to help someone get what they want if it's against my own moral code or something like that.
So what they accomplish then in this initial or in the sessions with you is that they learn what they need from their partner.
Yes.
And their partner learns what they need to give.
Yes, and vice versa. And very clearly, in behavioral terms, very specifically. Because the very things that one partner will truly need from another in order for them to experience, is it okay if we just call it some healing around some hurt places, will be things that their partner are least inclined to do, that they will have shut down in themselves for some reason in the past. So it's not an easy thing for a partner to say, sure, John, I'll do that. You want me to wear purple socks? Hey, I'll wear purple socks. When you really get to the places that are going to be dramatically altering in terms of their being healed, then it will be difficult. So they will have to learn through being very intentional how to take baby steps. I really want that, but yeah, this is nice, so I'll take this and maybe get that later.
So somebody's going to come to therapy, and you're going to say that you're definitely going to end up being screwed up in this relationship, and in order to resolve it, you're going to have to do these things that you're least inclined to want to do in order to make it work. And we have to do this in a very safe way, and we have to do it in a very positive way in order to keep people engaged in the process, because it's so difficult. I mean, many people believe that relationships are made in heaven. We should be soulmates. We should just flow right along and not have any of these hurts and bumps that you're talking about. In a moment, we're going to watch you work with a very interesting couple. Can you help our viewers know what to look for?
Yeah, a couple of things. One of the things that we've not mentioned, John, which is very important in this work, has to do with the way one person will have been primarily damaged will be that they will have experienced themselves having been used, intruded upon. The other will have experienced themselves as being ignored, neglected. And so in this short piece of work, you'll see that dynamic coming up, and you'll notice my pointing that out, and you'll see on the faces of both the young man and the young woman when they hit that place, of what is really painful for them. And it'll be, I would challenge them to look for those places where one is pretty much giving the message, boy, I've been used, I've had to work hard, I've been over-responsible, etc. And the other is giving the message, I want a hug, I want you to talk to me. You know, the connection.
So we can look for that pattern. Yeah. And this couple moved pretty quickly.
They did.
And is that typical?
You know, it is, and it amazes me every time it happens, John. I've been doing this work over 20 years, and it just works every time.
How did you set that up, though? And what could we look at that you did to make that happen?
I paid attention.
Okay. So the way that you paid attention to what they did with one another's...
You'll notice that I just had them begin talking with one another.
Okay.
And then picked up on the words, because they are always there, of the message, I need more closeness, I need more attention, and the message, you know, I've been used here.
I've been used and hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's watch. Let's see how you did it.
Okay.